Good evening, curious minds out there, or morning, or afternoon, whenever you hear this. This isn't going to be like a well-organized, typical broadcast. I just wanted to get on here in the wake of everything that's been going on with this Hurricane Helene situation, and just say, first of all, that my heart goes out to each and every one of you that was affected from this. It's a terrible tragedy, and it's only been made worse, it seems, by the relief efforts. We'll get into that in a second. I guess for those who aren't familiar somehow with what's been going on Wednesday the 25th, it was a Category 1 storm. Category 1 hurricane, whatever. Tropical storm had been upgraded. But then somehow it just suddenly gained massively and became a Category 4 hurricane by the time it hit Florida, somewhere near Keaton Beach and Perry, at 11:10 p.m. on Thursday, September 26th, with a ridiculously high storm surge that caused massive flooding and damage as it landed, but managed to keep its momentum, which I guess actually kind of served to lessen the devastation in Florida, most of Georgia. But once it hit eastern Tennessee and into the Carolinas, it lost that momentum, if you will, and dropped down to what they categorized as a tropical storm. But the eye of this thing pretty much just sat in place, and that stagnation combined with the fact of an already saturated area. They had a couple of days, 2-3 days of steady rain that preceded Helene's arrival. It would then dump an estimated 40 trillion gallons of rain. Trillion. 1 trillion is 1,000 billions, if you're not aware. Which is, I think most people fail to even grasp how much 1 billion actually is. But if you were to count, to put it in somewhat perspective, if you were to count off seconds to add up how many seconds it would take you, counting up to make 1 trillion, you would be sitting there counting for about 32,000 years. And it dumped 40 trillion gallons of water. So needless to say, this caused devastation on what can really only be referred to as a biblical scale, wiping entire communities off the map, obliterating bridges and roadways, destroying infrastructure, and leaving at least 415,000 people without power just in North Carolina alone. This thing was approximately 500 miles wide, which is absolutely massive and incredibly frightening. The current death toll sits around 230 or so in the official count. That's as of today, Monday, October the 7th. As far as I know, that's the last number that I recall seeing anyway. But that number is obviously expected to continue to climb, probably significantly, I would say, as the water subsides, and there's been a ton of mudslides and debris, and digging out from under that, I feel that there's no doubt the death toll will continue to rise. People were trapped. Everything happened so quickly that a lot of people really didn't realize the magnitude of what was happening until it was too late to evacuate. They didn't get a whole lot of warning to begin with, and then things just escalated very quickly. And I haven't seen even a reasonable estimation of how many are still missing. That's probably going to be pretty hard to calculate, especially in some of those rural areas. The federal response was sluggish and underwhelming, to put it as nice as possible. Some seemingly due to ongoing safety threats in the areas, and so many of those areas being cut off and just straight out inaccessible, as well as just the sheer number of people that were affected by this. Everything from alleged land grabs, very reminiscent of what happened in Lahaina, of an area that is rich in gems, minerals, and precious metals, including a quartz mine that's there in Spruce Pine, one of the most affected areas, that supplies virtually all of the world's high-purity quartz crystals. And of course, those are used, like semiconductors, and it's an invaluable resource in our modern world, I'll put it that way. All the way to federal and local officials inhibiting and outright blocking aid and rescue efforts, including reports of 18-wheelers being loaded with food and water being straight turned away at blockades. And several even reported having their tires slashed when they had stopped overnight trying to find another way to get that relief into the area. And this isn't based on, things that I've read on the internet or Facebook or Twitter or anything like that. The majority of what I'm going to be talking to you about is stuff that people have sent to me. Again, I can't really confirm the validity of a lot of it at this point, so I'm not going to go too deep into things that get kind of more on the fringe. I don't want that to become the focus, but I do feel inclined to at least bring you that information and present some of it to you. But I've also received firsthand accounts of paramilitary style goons threatening the relief workers and even hijacking vehicles that were loaded with supplies, coming up to these cars at gunpoint and taking the entire vehicle. And again, I just want to say I haven't been able to personally confirm those reports, but I have received quite a bit, and the sheer number is enough to give me concerns. The Biden administration would make a similar offer to what Maui received of the one-time relief payment or whatever. Theirs was $750, $50 higher than what they offered to Maui, at least. But it seems to be one of those if you can get it things. It's to those that are most affected, and it took about a week to make that happen, which, aside from doing virtually nothing to negate the losses of these people and the communities that have suffered from all of this, I've gotten literally hundreds of reports of people filing for relief only to be turned down, with each one saying they don't even know anyone personally who has received the aid. It seems that they just kind of put this out there, at least at the moment, as being a gesture and a hollow one. I haven't seen anyone that's got paid. I'm sure some people probably have. Maybe at this point the relief is starting to roll in a little better, and maybe it was just some errors with the system initially. But I do know a lot of people tried and failed to apply for this aid. And it could be due to many factors, of course, but it does seem to be a problem that was systemic and widespread, definitely at the beginning of it. And the FEMA workers on the ground, they're kind of, their hands are tied behind their back, if you will. They're basically waiting for orders, and they're not allowed to act on their own or make a move without authorization from above. And at least at the time of recording this, it hasn't seemed to be very quick to arrive. Also, reports of FEMA seizing supplies, presumably under the auspice to distribute them themselves at best. But a week later, no drops were being done. And only over the weekend did I finally start getting any kind of a word that a few small supply drops had been found. There seems to be no fully organized and mobilized supply strategy in place. The storm caused massive damage and loss of life, but the seemingly impotent relief response, if you will, has only worsened that loss of life, as people were stuck in a lot of these areas without food or potable water for days, some over a week now. And I'm sure that you don't have to hear it to put two and two together and realize that that does not bode well for those survivors. And I've gotten several other unconfirmed reports, but I don't want to rush to conspiracy over what could be ineptitude just yet, due to the lack of direct evidence that I have and the high level of confusion and misinformation that is all contributing to muddying those waters. I've managed to get some pretty disturbing data related to the hurricanes as well, including the currently active Milton, which, not to make light of the situation, but to provide a tiny bit of levity in an otherwise very heavy conversation we're having here. That name to me sounds more like it would hit the coastline and then its knees would give out, and it would probably start handing out some Werthers to everybody instead. Or maybe those weird strawberry candies that seem to only live in your grandmother's candy dish or at cheap houses on Halloween. You know the ones I'm talking about. In all seriousness though, Milton is a storm that was projected to be a Category 2 at best, and seemed to be losing momentum like a day ago. And then seemingly just overnight, in a not too dissimilar fashion to Helene, suddenly pumped up to what they're calling a Cat 5 now, pushing those boundaries and they're holding off and won't call it a Category 6, but it's historic levels at this point, and seems to be almost gaining momentum as it's pushing against the Gulf currents, something very rarely seen, and crossing the entirety of the Gulf of Mexico, projected to hit the Tampa Bay area of Florida in one of the worst hurricanes ever recorded. So if you are in that area, I would highly advise, for your safety, if at all possible, please seek shelter somewhere else. If you've got relatives in another state you can stay with, board up your windows, do all the hurricane prep, and then get out of there. The sooner the better. If you wait till you realize that it's going to be bad, those roadways are going to be jammed, and disaster, when it strikes quick, and things escalate quickly. So please try to be prepared for that, if at all possible, guys. And I admit this next bit is pure speculation at this time, but I feel like something foul is going on. And you will struggle to convince me, as I'm certain that the media will no doubt soon try to, that it's because of cow farts or driving your car beyond the desired 15 miles range outside of your little smart city. Speaking of which, I also believe, though the data seems to have been scrubbed where I was getting this stuff from before at least, but I think that Asheville was on that list of proposed smart cities. The ones that keep magically getting screwed by Mother Nature for some reason, those. Again, I can't confirm that now, but if somebody can, you got that information, please send it to me. I'll add some ways to communicate at the very end of this. And I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, though, because I can't personally confirm a lot of these details, like I'm telling you. I don't want to distract from the very real and unquestionable destruction and loss of life that many of these areas are still experiencing. And of course, our thoughts and prayers, as cliche and admittedly unhelpful as that may be, are certainly with all of those that have lost their homes, their income, their family members, pets, or their lives, and everyone who has been impacted by this horrible disaster. I'm working on getting together a list of verified ways that, should you choose to contribute to the victims in some way, if you can do so safely and know that your donations will actually reach those victims and not just get stolen or go to some massive corporation's tax write-offs. And there are plenty of scams out there right now. So hold off, or make sure that you can fully verify and vet before donating in any way. And I should have that up on the Facebook page and probably the Discord by hopefully the end of today, or at worst tomorrow. I know that some places are accepting and in need of volunteers to assist in everything from like search and rescue to clearing the debris, and eventually they're going to need a lot of help in the rebuilding efforts as well. So should you be able to and choose to get involved, I'm sure they would really appreciate it. This isn't anywhere close to all that I've got regarding all of this either, guys, but I wanted to at very least jump on here just real quick and get something out about all of this, and send my sincere condolences to everyone that has been affected by this disaster. My heart goes out to you. I mean, it truly does. And I will do everything in my power to direct effective relief in your direction. And I'm also going to dig into all of this to the best of my ability, and should I find any verifiable acts of malfeasance committed which affected either the severity of Helene or directly hindered, or in any way impeded relief getting to those that were affected, then I promise you that I will stop at nothing to do everything within my very limited ability to expose it fully. I've already gathered quite a bit that I'm trying as hard as possible to confirm at this point. If you live in any of those affected areas, my heart truly goes out to you again. I can't even imagine what all of you are going through right now. If you have any information, if you're around that area close, have friends, family, have direct knowledge of something that you would like to share or have brought to the light, please email me directly, clandestinradiopodcast@gmail.com or at proton.me if you feel better about that. Either way, reach out and I will arrange a even more secure way to communicate with you if you would like, as I do for any source. You will be completely protected. No one has to know that you told me anything. I just want to have direct knowledge of what is going on up there and do everything that I can to expose any malfeasance that has taken place and to be able to more effectively help in any way that I can. And if you're up there and if you can hear this, I know internet is extremely spotty and down in most places, power's out still. If somehow any of you hear this, then please, above all, hold on if you can. It certainly hasn't been as quick remotely as it should have been, but I promise you that help is on the way. People are mobilizing. I know plenty of people that are headed up there. They're going to do everything that they can to help, and they will pick up all of the slack that our government has, everything they've dropped the ball on in this tragedy. It will be remedied in time. Just hang in there, guys. Got a little emotional on that one. But thanks, guys, to all of you, as always, for tuning in to this special report. The break continues for now, but I guess by popular demand, an addendum episode is coming for our recent series on the octopus and Danny Casolaro. And we'll be back to regular schedule in November. If you don't hear from me sooner, and you probably will, but we'll just have to see. If you have the means to safely help these people that have been affected, again, I'm sure it would be appreciated. Florida. I have friends down there. I've got family down there. If you're remotely in the range of potentiality for this hurricane, please learn from what's happened. And if at all possible, I know that, jobs aren't very understanding, it would seem, even of things like this. But if it is at all possible for you to begin evacuating now, please do so, or as soon as possible. The longer you wait, I promise, the more difficult it will become to get out of your area. If you wait to the last minute, you're not going to be able to get out. So please take a page, listen to what these people are telling you from North Carolina and from some of these more affected areas. It happens quickly and it's catastrophic. So please do not fall victim to that. These crazy freak hurricanes, we'll call them for now, seem to be intensifying very rapidly. And even if it looks like it's not going to be bad, there is still a good likelihood that it could be extremely devastating, especially in an area that, very close to what was just hit by another hurricane. So take precautions. If they're telling you to evacuate your area, please listen, take that guidance, and do so if at all possible. If you have to ride it out, hunker down, do everything that you can, board those windows up, have all the emergency supplies that you can gather in the time that you have. If you would like to know what a great, bug out bag situation is on several different levels, you can go back. I did a whole BTR episode just on preparedness, and that'll go through a list of all kinds of little things, even just like a small everyday carry bag that you can get together. You're going to need cash. Most places are not going to be able to take credit cards. Just the basics, okay? If you want to check that out, again, that's up on the page. And I love you all, more than you know. Stay safe out there if at all possible. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. We're really and truly, if you can't tell, we're all we got. And I will talk to you all again real soon on the next Clandestine Radio.